All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a pretty bold prediction from our source text, the idea that the future of the globe is inherently tied to the expansion of Islam. Whether you're a data nerd tracking demographic shifts, or you're just fascinated by global cultural currents, we're going to walk through the author's exact arguments step by step. We'll be weaving together political commentary, hard demographic data, and theological text to paint a very specific picture of the future. So let's get to it.
Whose century will the 21st century be? I mean, it's a massive question, right? Throughout history, eras have been defined by sweeping empires, new economic systems, or massive cultural movements. But the text we're examining today makes a highly specific, unified claim about this century, basically challenging us to look way past the daily news cycle and focus on some massive, long-term global currents.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the century of Islam, then voices from the West. After that, the intellectual shift, followed by promises of global reach, and finally, a new global paradigm.
Okay, Section 1, The Century of Islam, Unpacking the Core Thesis.
To really grasp the author's worldview, we have to start right at the foundation with their primary claim, which is that the 21st century will see the widespread globalization of Islam. The author argues that, despite all the current global conflicts, the geopolitical tensions, and certain media portrayals, the undeniable overarching trend of our time is this inevitable global expansion of the Islamic faith. In fact, what might currently look like global friction is actually framed by the author as the growing pains of a massive, unstoppable cultural and religious shift spreading from east to west.
Moving on to Section 2, Voices from the West, Political Perspectives.
Now, to build this case, the source doesn't just exist in an echo chamber relying on internal claims. The author actually anchors their argument using the exact words of Western political figures. Take former US Congressman John Moran, for example, who served on the Foreign Affairs Committee. According to the text, Moran stated that he wishes immigrants from the Islamic world wouldn't abandon their religion, culture, and language. Instead, he expressed this hope that the 21st century would literally be the century of Islam and Islamic culture, seeing it as a genuine opportunity to bring more peace and prosperity to the globe.
And the text makes a point to emphasize that Moran's view isn't just some isolated hot take. The author cites other prominent figures to back this up, like former U.S. Attorney General Ramsey, who expressed very similar sentiments during the American Islamic Conference way back in 1998. So the text is using these specific examples to show a growing Western political acknowledgement. The idea is that Islam isn't just a regional force anymore, but a global one with a profoundly expanding influence.
All right, Section 3, The Intellectual Shift, Changing Demographics.
Moving beyond just the political rhetoric, the text points to a really tangible shift happening right now. It claims that conversions aren't just happening in a broad, general sense. They are happening among highly influential pillars of Western society. We're talking about medical doctors, university professors, military generals, members of parliament, and even former Christian priests. The author is using this to argue that the appeal of Islam in the 21st century is increasingly capturing the intellectual and professional elite of the West. It's framed as a very conscious choice being made by people in positions of profound societal influence.
To back up those qualitative observations, the author brings in the hard numbers. Citing Pew Research data directly, the text shows the global Muslim population on a steep upward trajectory. Back in 2009, Muslims made up 23% of the global population, which is roughly 1.57 billion people. But by 2030, that is projected to jump to 26.4%, reaching a staggering 2.2 billion people. This is a crucial point because it shows the author's thesis isn't just theoretical, it's grounded in data that we can track in real time.
Which brings us to Section 4, Promises of Global Reach, the Scriptural Foundation. So, how does all this build upon the secular data we just saw? Well, for the author, the ultimate proof of this massive demographic expansion actually lies in ancient promises made in the Quran and the prophetic traditions. The text basically argues that modern demographic data is simply catching up to what was already written centuries ago. It's this absolutely fascinating intersection where modern statistical projections meet deeply held religious conviction.
The author leans on a specific Quranic verse, Surah An-Nur, verse 55, as a divine guarantee. The text explains that in this verse, God promises those who believe and do righteous deeds that He will surely make them successors in the earth, establishing their religion and replacing their fear with security. Now, within the context of our source text, this isn't just read as historical context. No, it's viewed as an active, unfolding prophecy, guaranteeing that the Islamic faith is destined to establish deep, permanent global roots.
The really crucial takeaway here is how the source text interprets these prophetic sayings, or hadiths. It doesn't just read them spiritually, but as a literal geographic inevitability. The text quotes a famous hadith stating, "This matter, meaning Islam, will reach wherever night and day reach." I mean, that is incredibly expansive. The author explicitly argues this means the faith will eventually encompass the entire globe, leaving literally no home, whether in a massive city or a remote desert, untouched by it. So that demographic growth we looked at earlier, it's presented as the mechanical fulfillment of this precise prophecy.
And finally, Section 5, a new global paradigm, the future vision.
Synthesizing all of this, the demographic data, the scriptural promises, what does this actually look like in practice? Well, the text carefully redefines the very word globalization. Usually, when we hear that word, we immediately think of Western economic dominance, corporate expansion, or, political control. But the author frames Islamic globalization entirely differently. It's presented as a holistic, universal integration. Instead of subjugation, it's described as a harmonious connection with the entire universe, encompassing humans, nature, the earth, and the heavens. It's a vision of a global order rooted deeply in spiritual and moral connection, rather than just economic borders.
As we wrap up this explainer, we're really left to ponder this massive final question presented by the text. Will the current global order accept this profound demographic and cultural shift, or are we witnessing the dawn of an entirely new geopolitical era? The source material we've unpacked today offers a highly specific, confident vision of the future, one where data and scripture perfectly align to predict a globally integrated Islamic century. Regardless of your personal worldview, understanding this perspective is absolutely vital for grasping the massive narratives shaping our modern world. Thanks so much for joining me today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeking to understand the ideas that are shaping our collective future.